Unit 2, Integers. As we said before, integers include positive numbers, negative numbers, and 0. So as you can see on this number line, you have positive numbers. Even though there's not a plus sign there, it is positive. You can see negative numbers with a minus sign in front of them, and you can see the number 0. We can put any number that's an integer. Could be -1, it could be +5, or it could be 0. We can put any of these numbers on the number line. So I could take this, and there's your -1. So I could put a dot there for -1. I can take this +5 and put it up here, and then I can put my dot on the +5. Or of course I could take my 0, which is right in the middle. It's neither positive nor negative, and put a line right on there like that. When you're multiplying integers together, there are 3 rules, and they're pretty easy rules to remember. The 3 rules: when you're multiplying a positive and a positive, it's going to give you a positive. These are the numbers we normally see all the time, like 7 times 7 is 49. Normally there's no plus in front of it, but you could put a plus in front of each one just to show that they're positive numbers. You could multiply together a positive and a negative, and that will always give you a negative. So if I go +7 times -7, I will end up with a negative number. And the actual answer to that is -14. When you put 2 negatives together, you end up with a positive. So -7 times -7 will give you positive 49. Okay? So a lot of times we say 2 wrongs don't make a right. Well, in this case, 2 negatives do make a positive. The only one that makes a negative is when you have opposite, a positive times a negative. The rest of them will always be positive. Okay, doing a few examples. So given any integers, the easiest way to multiply them is to multiply them just like they didn't have positive or negative in them, and then afterwards decide on the sign that you want to put there. So let's take this one here. It's +5 times +6. I'm going to ignore the +5 and I'm going to ignore the +6 and just go 5 times 6, which is 30. Then all I have to do is look at my plus sign and my plus sign, and we knew 2 positives make a positive, so the answer is positive 30. Looking at the second one, I'm going to ignore my plus and my minus signs, and I'm going to go 5 times 6, which is again 30. Now looking at my signs, I have a positive times a negative, and we know from the previous slide, positive times negative is a negative. The final one, we have 5 again times 6, which is again 30. Then we look at the signs, and the sign is negative times a negative, which will give you a positive. So it's the exact same problem with different signs, and it affects the answer. Looking at the next examples, 7 times 4, well, if we take 7 times 4 is 28. We're not even looking at the signs. Now we can look. There's nothing in front of this one, but we know if there's nothing in front of it, it's positive. So it's positive times negative, which gives you a negative. In this one here, 6 times 4 is 24. Now, is it positive in front of this one and positive in front of this one? So it's a positive 24. In this one, 6 times 5 is 30, and it's a negative times a positive, so it's a negative 30. You notice sometimes they put brackets just around the -6. Sometimes they put them, sometimes you'll see it without the brackets, put around it. So don't get confused if there are brackets around them. It's just to hold the numbers and their signs together. So 6 times 5 is 30 again, and then negative times a negative is a positive 30. So that's the example we had earlier as well. Sometimes you might be asked to do word problems with multiplication. Okay? So you might be given a sentence. You might be given a word problem. You might be asked to write a multiplication sentence. So something times something equals something. So you might be asked to write one of them. Some of the words you need to watch for are words like decrease. Whenever they say it decreases, you know that number is going to be a negative. Whenever they say drop, it's going to be a negative number. If they say increase, it's going to be positive. If they say spend money, because you're losing money, it's a minus. And if they say save money, well, you're getting more, so it's a positive. And you'll see this in the next couple of examples. Example 1. The temperature drops, and here's the key word. It drops 3 degrees Celsius every hour. How much has the temperature dropped in 4 hours? So, first thing we need to look at is this 3 degrees that it's dropping going to be a positive or negative? Well, if it's dropping, it's going down, so it's going to be a negative 3. And I'm going to put brackets around it just to hold it together. So that's every hour. And we want to know after 4 total hours. So we need negative 3 times, and that's positive 4, because we want to know that it is 4 full hours. And the answer to this, well, 3 times 4 is 12. And it's a negative times a positive, which is a negative. So our answer to this one, if we were to write it out, would be the temperature has dropped, and you'd have to write it out just that way. The temperature has dropped minus 12 degrees Celsius. Or it's dropped 12 degrees, so it's minus 12 degrees Celsius. Second example, you save $8 a week for 9 weeks. How much have you saved? Well, if you look at it, if you're saving money, it's a positive. It's good, you're adding money up. So you're going to be positive 8 for every week. So if you have 2 weeks, it's 2 times that 8. If you have 3 weeks, it's 3 times 8. But we have 9 weeks, so it's going to be 9 times 8. And I could put my positive in front of the 9, like this, and then put brackets around it if I'd like, or I could just leave it as 9. So 9 times 8 is 72, and I know it's positive 72 because positive times a positive is a positive. So the question was, how much have you saved? You have saved $72 in 9 weeks, and that would be the answer for that one. You might even be asked to come up with your own word problem for the sentence. So let's say we're given something like negative 2 times 5. Now you remember that negative means a drop in something. So if it's going to be a drop in something, you've got to come up with a problem that goes down. One of the examples I came up with here from the notes said that I spent $2 a day. Now spending is always negative. So negative $2 a day for 5 days. How much did I spend? Well, you are minus $2 or negative $2 every day times 5 days. That certainly translates to what we were asked to come up with. Now, if you wanted to solve this problem, we could go 2 times 5, which is 10, and then it's a negative times a positive, which is a negative. So how much did I spend? I spent $10. So now you are negative $10. So they spent $10, or the answer to the problem is negative $10. You might also be asked to make the smallest or largest number from the integers that you're given here. So if you're going to multiply two numbers together, and you want to make the largest, you might automatically think, oh, I'm just going to take this positive 5 and positive 4, because they're the two biggest numbers here. Whereas positive 5 times positive 4 will give you positive 20. So if I were to multiply these together, 5 times 4 equals 20. But what about your negatives? Remember that a negative and a negative together make a positive. So let's take the two negative ones here. Negative 3, and if I write that here, negative 3 times negative 8 equals, well, 3 times 8 is 24. And then a negative times a negative will give you a positive. So we managed to make a larger number, plus 24, by using both negative numbers. So be careful not to just assume that I got to multiply the largest two numbers together, because your negatives together will give you a positive number. When we're coming up with the smallest number, well, in that case, you want the most negative number. So the further you can have it negative, the better. So if you could get minus 10, that's going to be better than minus 8. Because minus 10, if you think of temperature, minus 10 is smaller or colder than minus 8. So what will give us the biggest negative number? So looking at these here, well, we take the biggest negative number, which is minus 8, and then we take the biggest positive number, which is positive 5. So I take negative 8 times positive 5. 8 times 5 is 40, and negative times a positive will give me a negative. So my smallest number that I can make is negative 40. So to make the largest number again, simply multiply together two numbers. That will give you the highest plus. And that could be two negative numbers. To make the smallest number, multiply two numbers together to give you the biggest negative answer you can get, or the most negative answer you can get.